All right, howdy there, all you folks. Welcome back to Dust Customs. Today, I've finally decided, after much deliberating and putting it off and trying to figure out ways of doing it, to just get into this thing. I'll flip you around and just give you a quick look at where we're at. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, now's the time. Hit the button. Anyway, let's keep cracking on with this thing. All right, so whenever you're building a car, that's this deep into being a full custom vehicle. I'm talking modified floor pan, modified suspension, modified engine, different gearbox, completely different rear end, body chop. It's just every single thing has been changed on it. You're going to come across maybe one or two issues. So the main issue, and I'm not going to call it an issue yet, is, I've got a 3-rib trans that I'm bolting into a beetle kinda type 1 rear end here with a Subaru motor adapted to it. So, obviously I had a few issues with the Subaru motor. The main issue is that I don't have the proper ECU to run this thing. So I need to start with a Haltech. And, let's be honest, it's a couple of grand that I just don't have right now. But it doesn't mean there's not a lot that I can still do. So what I'm going to try and do today is start working on mounting the trans. So let's have a look at that. All right, so this trans, it's a built trans. It was built for off-road racing, but I acquired it. So basically, I'm going to use this trans. I'm not even sure what the gearing is yet on it, but I'm going to build this car around it. And if at a later date I've got to get the pinion changed or something, I will do. But for now, this is the box that I'm using. So the three rib had. They were mounted at the rear into the bottom of the bus, which I'm not going to be using those mounts. I've got a Subaru Gears mounting plate at the bottom, which utilizes the original Subaru mount. So that's great. The only issue is that actually this trans doesn't fit well between the frame horns, and it's also using the Subaru trans to get the engine kind of level. It's the nose cone is above the tunnel here at the front. The bus also has this kind of mount on the nose, which is, I've never seen how this bit mounts into the bus, but I've got all the rest of it, and it's mounted on into the front of the nose cone with two M10 bolts. So I'm going to say at this stage that's going to be strong enough. If at a later stage I find that it's not, I'll incorporate a trans strap. The main issue is that there's, with all my stuff going on that I've built here, there's not a lot of clearance. So the main, that's not in properly. The main issue I've got to do is decide where that's going to mount. And, I've kind of already nutted that out. I'm actually going to chop a little bit of this metal away from the tunnel and just clean that out. And then I've got to get the gear linkage, is that what they call that? The rod to mount above the tunnel like that. So that'll mean I'm going to remove the handbrake mount, and I'm going to make up some kind of adapter that utilizes the original mount to mount a gear shifter above it. So I've also got to have it, it needs to hold this in a floating position at the front so it can move forward, back, and rotate like that. So first things first, I've got to do a bit of cleaning up. So I'll cut the handbrake mount off, the old handbrake mount. I'll probably just go with a hydraulic handbrake in this, like I've got in my other floor pan. And I will also, cut some of this section out here just to create a bit of clearance. So then I can make up an adapter to mount the original bus trans, the T2, trans mount onto that frame horn there. I think that's how I'm going to go about it. So unfortunately, that means yoinking the engine one more time to do that clearancing. But how hard can that be? So I'll just get into it.
Go.
All right, well, that's looking better. It's in and out. Taking the handbrake mount off and clearanced a bit more in there for this thing to go on. Let's see if I can set it up. It should be easier than before. Yeah, so that's that. So now what I need to do is I need to rig up a bracket. What I want to do is I want to encapsulate these two rubber mounts there. I had thought of just pulling them off and welding that metal, straight to a bracket just like that. So it was just relying on that one, because there's another rubber mount in there. And that way, I would be able to still slip the trans in. Let me just have a think about this for a minute. I've got to kind of start whipping up a bracket. That I've got to get the shift bush that goes there, the shift coupling, and I've got to get that set up at the front there at a right height. I'm sure being on a bit of an angle down wouldn't hurt, but I also don't mind just having it up like that. I'll probably make fold up a fake tunnel that goes over the top of it and, do something with that. At this stage, it's just trying to get the thing to be mounted and shift. Just a step forward is all I'm trying to achieve right here. Let me find some scrap steel and see what I can make up. All right, so this is what I've got. It's, maybe a little crude looking to start with, but I'm hoping that, I can make this something. So they're going to go there. That will weld in there. That will actually be the top, which will clamp down on that, which will have these at the bottom, so they encapsulate that rubber, and that will be welded on there and welded to the frame at the bottom there. So I've just got to kind of weld all this together the best I can and see what it looks like.
Go.
Well, after a little bit of grinding and welding, this is what I come up with. So welded a captive nut in there, and these bits here, I'll probably clean them up a little bit more, especially the top bracket. But this is, it's a concept that hopefully it's going to work. My welds, I kind of almost have forgotten how to weld. So let's just see if I can get this on there and actually tack that to the bottom bit there. And I've got a gear trans mount, a front trans mount, which will be cool, which is, that's what I was trying to achieve. So I'll just mount that up. Give me a second and I'll kind of see if I can, just snag it on there. So phase one of the operation is okay. There's a little bit of work I've got to do to clearance. You can see these nuts that go on there. The bottom one is fouling with the bracket I made and also with the center of this, that tunnel there. So I've got a couple of options. I could probably, shave a bit of that back and take a bit of the thread off to make it so it was, there's a lot of meat on that, so I could probably, modify that holder a little bit. Other than that, I am fairly happy with how it is. I need to get this in the perfect position. The perfect position there, and so you can see there is still some movement there, but that's because there is adjustability in this thing. So yeah, I'm thinking if I can get that there welded on there solid, it's only holding the front of the trans, which is a lot, but because I've got the Subaru gears mount on the back, I don't feel like it's as heavily relying on that. And then, like I said earlier, worst case scenario, I could probably easily make a trans strap that that comes over here somewhere. Maybe utilize a couple of these bolts here or something like that. Anyway, I'll keep cracking at it. I've got to do a bit of, I need to do some cleaning up on that and kind of make it pretty, and then make it so it actually is in the exactly correct position, centered and everything. And then weld that on. And I guess that's, step one. I've got the trans mounted, which I'm pretty happy with. And it's using, trying to use some stock parts, so it's not just a whole manufactured thing. I can just, I can buy another one of these when I need it, so that's good. There is clearance up there. It hasn't hit, so that's good. Anyway, I'll keep cracking and I'll give you some updates. Well, I had a night to think about it and a day at work, and I've kind of been thinking about the design of this trans mount. And look, I was going to say I wasn't exactly happy with it. I feel like it was overcomplicated and, potentially a failure point. So I kind of, was thinking about it and I've come up with this design. So what I'm thinking is I just made a cardboard template. It's going to sit off the trans by about, I'll put a piece of rubber in there just to give it a bit of cushioning. It will be a solid mount, but it'll have just a bit of rubber in between just to give it that little bit of less vibration. And then these side bits will just weld over like that, and it'll give me plenty of room to, that'll get lifted up a bit. It'll give me plenty of room to, to bolt the thing on, and it'll just be a very simple, hopefully a very simple build, design. So I'm going to get on with this, and I think I might just make this rear template a little bit different, this side template. Yeah, I'll cut this out of steel and I'll just see, see how it looks. Right, well, there's my new bracket, and I'm fairly happy with, how I've used 10mm steel at the back and 6mm steel at the side, so this thing's going to be solid. Of course, the issue is now that I can't get it in without removing the engine again. So I've got to lift it up, get this in. Obviously, it'll be, once it's in, it will be easier to get the engine in with this thing in, but I've got to, in the meanwhile, try and get this thing installed. So I'll just yank that again and try and see if we can flop this in. And I'm gonna have to make some kind of temporary packer because I don't think I've got any 10mm rubber. I did have some, but don't know where it's turned, where it's got to. So let's yank the engine one more time. Well, that's tacked in. I'm fairly happy with it. It's a fairly solid mount. I'm just not going to 100% weld it in until I yank the engine one more time and make sure that I can get it in and out without having any issues. I mean, it's all fairly tight for clearance. I may end up having to notch this rail. I had thought about maybe potentially removing this rail and putting in a smaller rail. There's a lot of weld on it though, so I was hoping to not have to do that. That was originally from a bag mount, which is not going to happen anymore. So next, I'm going to try and just at least mock up the shifter, which is going to be, I've got to get a shift linkage. Hopefully that one works. I don't even know if this looks different than ones that I've used in the past. So I don't know. I do have a few different shift linkages, so I might grab them. I've got to try and mock up a couple of threads coming up here to hold the shifter up. The problem is obviously the back thread will get in the way of that. So I've got to make up something that comes up and over to make that work. Let's get cracking on it. So I found a coupler. I've actually got a few of them kicking around, but I just used this old one that has a bolt going through it. And yeah, that is how they go together. I'd kind of forgotten. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to mock up the front height for the shifter. And so basically this thing here gets carried by, whatever. I've got these spacers, you try and keep all these kind of stuff because they definitely come in handy. And I've figured that is the height that I need to try and set the thing up at. So I'm calling that 65 mil. Will probably be good. So I'm just going to make up a little thing that kind of holds that, and give me a second and I'll whip it up. Well, here's a top tip for you. I haven't set up my drill press yet. I'm still waiting on PowerPoints inside. But if you're making up some stuff that needs a lot of holes drilled in it, drill the holes before you cut the pieces. It's just a heck of a lot easier to drill, holes in a long bit of steel than it is a short bit of steel. I'm going to cut it up now. Well, here we go. For the first time ever, actually sitting in the Beetle Ute like it's a car. These are the seats that are going to go in it. And this is roughly the seating position. And this is the shifter. And it's doing gear changing things. In this little box here, it's just a mock-up at this stage. I have to figure out the carrier bush at the back here to make the shift rod kind of stay, where it wants to be, but it also has to move side to side. So I've got a little bit of figuring it out there to do. I think on the back of this box, I can just make a slotted section with a rubber in it. That would probably work. But look, at the end of the day, I'm getting gears, even reverse, believe it or not. Reverse is there. I've got to cut out, I'm not getting quite the throw that I need. I think I just need to cut a little more out of the top of this box. But hey, look, at the end of the day, I got a trans mounted, I got a gear stick. I'm pretty excited. I mean, it's been a lot of procrastinating trying to get this stuff done. And sometimes it doesn't always happen the first time, but here's the little box I made up, and it is just tacked together, but it gives me the height I need to be able to, to be able to use the original bolts to be able to fasten this thing down. What will I do in the long term? I'm not 100% sure yet. Probably make some kind of cover that goes over the whole thing, but is also removable. I've still got to be able to access the, the original chassis number, which is in the back there. But, there's that. I found a bit of rubber to put in the back of it. So that's the trans mounted. Very simple. Seemed like a very simple answer to my problem. And shifter. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one, fellas and ladies. And look, I'm really excited to have some progress happening on this car. And hopefully I can just keep the momentum going and actually get this thing running. I've got to, like I said on previous video, I've got to spend some money getting the Haltech and that sorted. But, you know, there's a lot of work that I can do in the meantime. Now I can start mocking up the seats, getting the seat rails installed, building that tunnel, and then, of course, finishing off the bodywork. There's a lot to do on that as well. But it all happens fairly fast once you get excited about the project. I'll stop yapping. I'll catch you later.